It was the year 1997, a mere 3 years from the sacred millennium, and I was but a wee lad of 6. The N64 was hardly a year old in the US, and its release had been hyped up more than the second coming of Christ. So many commercials on every channel showing Pikachu beating up Mario. Getting the N64 for Christmas in '96 was a feeling that can never be replaced, and if you look up videos from that time, you'll come across numerous examples of spoiled children losing their minds at unwrapping that thick package. Then, in April of 1997, a new game was released, Star Fox 64, and for many of us at that age, it was our first space-themed game, and the concept was sufficient to blow our tiny minds wide open with wonder. Allow me to take you back. You've just purchased Star Fox 64 at your local game exchange, and as you race home you pass by the homeless man on the corner. He weakly asks for change to buy food, but you have none for him. And as you sprint past, you barely notice when you beam him in the dome with your shopping bag. He falls to the ground, unconscious or dead, you know not, and care not. Arriving home, you immediately slap in the game cartridge into the N64's inviting top slot like a 30-round magazine into a heavily modded and questionably legal AR-15, and give it just a little extra love tap to ensure its snug fit. Whew, that feels good. Then you turn on your console with the toggle of a small switch and the screen lights up, and the game immediately starts up. No download, no updates, no signing in, just the game you purchased. And get this, you don't even need an internet connection. Gasp. Now before you play the game, you're given a brief introduction and told that years ago the giant evil space monkey, Andross, ruled the galaxy but was thwarted only with the aid of the Star Fox team, led by James McCloud and his trusty partner, Peppy Hare. Unfortunately, James is killed and Peppy escapes with his life. Years later, and Andross is at it once again. And a new Star Fox squadron, led by James's son, Fox, attempts to defeat Andross once and for all. Star Fox's wingmen are Peppy Hare, the rabbit. Peppy used to fly with Fox's father back in the old days until he died horribly at the hands of Andross. James, not Peppy. Peppy is generally helpful, letting the player know the flight controls, but he also frequently gets himself into trouble, most likely due to his aging body and slowing mind, as well as the traumas associated with decades of brutal combat.
Sorry, guys, I gotta sit this one out.
Next is Falco something. Maybe Captain Falco. Bird? I'm not sure. He's a Falcon. Falco is the edgy and cocky pilot and always has something smart to say to Fox or the others. His false bravado, however, brought about by always coming second best to Fox, only ever wavers when he's in trouble and half asks for help as he's about to get blown out of the sky. And finally is Slippy, Frog, or Toad, the frog, or Toad. I don't know, I couldn't be bothered to look it up. Slippy, he, maybe she? Honestly, I don't know that either. As a kid, I always thought they were a girl because of their high-pitched voice, but they might actually be a man, frog. Anyway, Slippy is just the worst. I mean, I don't know how they got a pilot's license because they cannot fly, shoot, or in any way keep up with the rest of the team. And the team is always getting caught out, but Slippy is always in trouble, or confused, or lost. Everything Slippy says is just whiny and annoying. I usually try and shoot them down whenever I can, just to get their dialogue out of the way. So that's your team. They fly along your side, helping sometimes, or occasionally telling you things that are useful for playing the game, or navigating the level or beating a boss. But for the most part, they just keep dialogue up and get in the way of your laser shots. The first level, Corneria, starts out flying over the Cornerian Ocean, and before you can even try to test out the controls, you're immediately assaulted by a single ship. Provided you can wiggle the janky little N64 plastic joystick and slap a button at the same time, you destroy the vessel with ease. Congratulations. You're then approached by a handful of other ships, which you hopefully dispatch with equal ease. Now, once again, before you've even had a chance to roll your ship 90 degrees and slam your wing into the oddly concrete-like ocean, you get a message from Slippy. Immediately, he's in trouble and needs your help. Now, if this is your first few playthroughs, you'll try to save Slippy, but like I said, once you get used to the game, you'll probably help the enemy ship destroy them. With Slippy's now flaming ship crashing into the mountainside, you enter Corneria City and are free to navigate around obstacles and shoot the many enemies that fly around. You find that the A button fires a laser just about as fast as your tiny little fingers can press it. Yay for the ages before video game-induced carpal tunnel sat in! When you try the B button, you find that it fires an enormous nuclear blast that's sure to contaminate the local ecosystem for miles in all directions. Whoopsie! But that was really cool. Let's do it again. So you do. And then another. And uh-oh! You found that you can no longer commit large-scale societal and environmental annihilation. Ah, shucks. You've got to collect additional munitions first. In addition to bombs, there are a ton of other collectibles like silver rings, Sony's trademark Sonic Gold rings, star-shaped rings, and laser upgrades. Now halfway through this level, Peppy comes over the comms and says a line that is so iconic that you've probably heard it even if you've never played Star Fox.
Do a barrel roll!
And so you do, and it deflects the incoming enemy fire. Good job! Keep in mind that whenever you're being shot at by high-intensity lasers, all you need to do is spin around and slap those annoyances away with ease. As you fly through the rest of the level, you're informed of an approaching enemy robot, and Fox's ship goes into all-range mode. You break free of the rail-guided and are allowed to fly freely in all directions. 3D at its finest. Now the first boss is a cakewalk as he merely trots around and smack-talks your team without even throwing out any attacks. Or maybe he does. Honestly, I've never kept him alive long enough to see if he has attack patterns. Once you shoot his robot's leg off, he falls down and flails around harmlessly while continuing to talk some tough shit. Rather than taking advantage of the unarmed enemy and de-escalating the situation, your team blasts him with fiery lasers that eventually melt through his robot's hull and burn the pilot alive. He then explodes in a brilliant sphere of stuff. Fire, I guess? Hard to tell with those graphics, but as a kid, I loved the explosion spheres. Congrats, you've beaten the first level. You will do this literally hundreds of times if you keep replaying this game. And that's the first level. Each level is around 5 minutes long depending on how long it takes you to beat the boss. There are 14 levels, but you will only encounter 6 or 7 of them at a time, as there are multiple paths to take while traversing the game, and each path depends on certain tasks you take in certain levels. For instance, in the first level there are 2 paths, but you will only make it to the second one by flying through some pretty obvious stone arches, and then following Falco through the waterfall. I'm pretty sure this is where the whole every secret path is behind the waterfall shtick from every game of the 90s and early 2000s. Now this method of having the choice to take different paths to get to the final level gives such good replayability, and considering the main game is only about 45 to 60 minutes long, there really is a lot to do after your first playthrough, not to mention that the final level has 2 endings, but I'll get into that later. Each level after the first either puts you on a planet's surface or in deep space. A few of the levels are different in that they're only done in all-range mode, which gives the player a nice breath of fresh air from constantly being kept on a rail. But no matter if on a rail or in all-range mode, each level really feels so unique with their own design, color schemes, and tone. You've got the starting level, which is a sprawling city surrounding countryside, then go into deep space, either into an asteroid field or in an active military combat zone. There's also an underwater level, a desert level, a satellite level, a sewer level, and even the system's sun is a level. Speaking of variety, you get to play some levels in completely different vehicles. Most of the time you're in the main R-wing, but a few of the levels put the player in either a tank or a submarine. The second level is an asteroid belt, and for the most part it's pretty unremarkable. But as a kid, this is probably my favorite level because it really nailed the theme of space piloting space. I think this would have been a better first level, and could have been played as if the player were making their way to the under siege city of Corneria. I mean, the game is called Star Fox. It's a game about flying in space, going between planets on your way to destroy a giant space monkey. It just makes more sense to start off in space rather than on a planet's surface, but that's just me. As I said before, the asteroid field is pretty unremarkable, but it does have one aspect that stands out. Now before the player gets to the boss, there's a short section with odd glue blowing rings that you can fly through, and when you do, you find that your ship starts to speed up. It spins, the whole screen gets blurry with fun little tracers. As you go through additional rings, the effects worsen, making hitting all the rings progressively more difficult. And with a controller, this is a slight challenge, but with a 4-directional keyboard, I don't even want to have to go into how many times I had to try this. I can only speculate that these rings are some kind of synaptic stimulators of unknown origin, and when you pass through them, you're irradiated with hallucinatory energies. Once you fly through all the rings, Fox's squad transcends the mortal realm and finds themselves in a literal drug trip with far-out colors and tracers. Okay, really, was every game developer in the 80s and 90s on LSD and shrooms? Aquas. Aquas is probably the most unique level. Here you pilot a submarine underwater. I mean, where else would it be piloted? I don't even know why I kept this line in the script, but it says it right here, so I have to keep reading. Anyway, you'll notice that while playing Aquas, my frames drop dramatically. Apparently 1990s underwater level graphics are just too much for my $1,100 gaming laptop to handle. Probably from playing too many years of League of Legends. In Aquas, you're told that you're on the hunt for the enemy's bioweapon, so naturally, as you search for this weapon, you mercilessly obliterate the local wildlife population. I mean, you really just shoot the crap out of anything that swims by. Fox doesn't have a bit of remorse. Take that, you bastard fish! This level also has one of the most unique bosses. It turns out that the enemy bioweapon is a giant clam, and you must destroy it right away! That's right, the greatest threat to the galaxy is aided by a giant, unmoving clam. But it's definitely the bioweapon, and not an ageless sentient creature of the sea in the midst of a millennial-long pondering of its own existence. It has survived the last remaining of its kind, and is the sole carrier of its species' rich and sophisticated history. The knowledge he holds is immeasurable. Knowledge on the topics of universal mechanisms, math, physics, philosophy, retained and passed along throughout eons, knowledge to be one day shared with other alien species to better all kind throughout the galaxy, that they may all benefit and burst into the forefront of the universe, transcending the physical plane. So you blow it up with torpedoes. Sol. Another level on the map contains another bioweapon, Sol, the system's sun. This level will constantly damage the player's ship depending on how low they fly. Not much else except its boss. This weird-ass dude comes bursting out of the lava like Stacy's mom out of her pool. You shoot his arms off, of course you do. They blow up and he starts bleeding lava. Okay, so this thing is definitely the bioweapon and needs to be exterminated immediately. Each level, regardless of vehicle, is played in about the same way. Shoot everything you can, maybe hit a few specific targets along the way until you meet the boss, but the level designs and vehicles really keep you enticed. It never feels repetitive. And as a kid, this game just pulls you in from the start. It doesn't let you go even after you beat the final level. You need to play again to discover how to get all the additional levels. And all the levels are so good, except Titania. Not only is the level a barren dust and rust-colored wasteland, but the boss is probably the least difficult. Oh, and you are forced to do something horrible. Something that will cost the team dearly. You have to rescue Slippy! In the level previous, Slippy's ship is badly damaged by the boss, and crash lands on Titania, which you must go to, traverse, and beat the boss to rescue Slippy. And it really is such a shame that you have to rescue them to progress, because the game is so much more enjoyable without that damn toad constantly screaming and whining at you. Now, it's no secret that overall Star Fox is quite an easy game. Even for younger players, as long as you're not purposefully slamming into walls or enemies, the game gives you plenty of chances to regain any lost health. From the first level, the difficulty doesn't often spike much at all, but that's not really a detriment. Sometimes it's perfectly fine for a game to be just plain fun, and not that challenging. There are still some challenges in figuring out how to beat bosses, how to find alternate paths and levels, and that's not to say that some parts aren't challenging, because there definitely are. There are a few levels where the player must engage in dogfighting against a rival team led by the nefarious Starwolf and his team of cocky trilobites. More so in the second encounter, their team is actually pretty nimble pilots and are really quite difficult to hit. In both the second to last levels, you can see the final level off in the background, a soured and dead-looking planet called Venom. And when you get there, if you took the lower path, all hell breaks loose. Enemies are numerous, fast, and powerful, the terrain dangerous and erupts from the ground like splintered bones. After you make it through the first half of the level, Fox for some reason flies into a suspicious temple rather than flying over it. In the temple, you encounter a mini-boss, an odd-looking stone golem. Slippy remarks that the golem is running away from Fox, but you don't care. You must blast the thing before it escapes your clutches, no matter how many pillars it pulls from the walls to stop you. Okay, but seriously, those pillars are a pain. If you hit one, the knockback is likely to push you into a few more and take out your already dwindling HP. After blasting apart the golem piece by piece, Fox tells his team that he's leaving them to go have a one-on-one with Andross for no other reason than plot. Now, Andross actually has two forms. One's the real one, and one's a decoy. And if you take the false ending path, you fight Andross, shoot his hands off. Okay, I swear, what's up with the N64 and head-hands bosses? Between Star Fox, Mario 64's Desert Boss, and Smash Bros. Master Hand, it's almost like Nintendo was encouraging us to hack off our own hands. You shoot his hands off, then shoot his eyes, then he explodes into the most haunting creature a child can even make up. Robot Monkey Andross scared the shit out of me as a child. He's jerky and flappy, but also gets right the fuck up in your grill. Like, takes up the whole screen shit. As a kid, you feel like he's trying to jump out and eat your tender young flesh. You need to kill him fast. If you take too long, the trauma will fully set in, and you'll find yourself 3 years deep into a therapist and still trying to get over your abandonment issues, getting nowhere because the therapist refuses to believe that trauma can come from a video game. She insists it's from moving too many times throughout your childhood that you never developed in-person long-lasting relationships. So you kill the robot monkey. It's pretty easy, actually. False ending, bleeds. Now let's say you took the top or middle path. and instead of a ground assault like before, the squad must fight Starwolf's team one last time. Since their first encounter, Starwolf's team has been resurrected from the dead, and their corpse is outfitted with cybernetics, leaving them as but a hollow shell of their former selves. Their bodies are stronger, and their ships more advanced, but their souls? Those are burnt wisps. But that doesn't stop them from still being annoying over the comms as you one by one blow them up yet again. This time, however, they've mastered the art of sharp banking, and the player actually has to pilot well enough to land a few shots at a time on each one. After defeating Starwolf, Fox again flies into the planet core by himself, and you must once again fight Andros' giant, ugly monkey face. After you defeat Phase 1, Andros freaks out and screams as he explodes. This seems actually pretty unsettling, and somehow they managed to make a character model with less polygons in my high school geometry homework look unsettling as it died. Anyway, Monkey Man dies and leaves behind a disembodied brain with some wonderfully squiggly bits of tendril dangling down from below, and two eyes that immediately detach from the brain and fly off to attack you with their no doubt slimy, almost sperm-like bodies. Now this fight isn't exactly hard. The eyes do shoot lasers at you, but it's only if you get super close, and their fire rate is quite slow. The eyes are connected by lightning for some reason to Andros' brain, and if you run into it, you get damaged a small amounts. By itself, those wouldn't be issues, but holy shit, are those eyeball boys maneuverable. This is by far the most mechanically challenging fight in the whole game. The eyes follow your every move and never let you get far enough away to line up good shots. And the fact that they're eyes makes it feel like a creepy uncle who's always lurking just behind you at family gatherings, and smiles every time you catch his eye. And if you manage to destroy both eyes and still have at least one wing, then you might stand a chance against Andros' brain by itself. But damn, he's just as, if not even more maneuverable than his eyes. He's faster, turns sharper, and is even more creepy than his eyes too. Worse too, if you're in the process of trying to sharply turn or do a U-turn, he's always right there. And if he so much as gets a single, quiggly brain tentacle on you, they pull you in and chew on your R-ring like some kind of jellyfish that's gotten too smart for the ocean. Okay, let me tangent for just a moment to say how lucky are we that jellyfish are bound to the ocean. Can you imagine if a school of them just started, I don't know, floating, rolling around on the land? You accidentally trip and fall into them, and that's it, paralyzed and digested more slowly than the Sarlacc pit. Anyways, after Andros' tentacles have found all of your orifices, and assuming you have enough HP left over after playing the scariest game of Don't Blink with his eyes, he releases you and you have to try once again to shoot his cerebellum. I swear on my second playthrough I probably died 10 times before beating it. And I know that's partially due to me being shit at the game, but it also points to a very well designed and challenging boss in an otherwise simple and charming game. So let's say you destroy Andros in all of his slippery and angry glory. Naturally, his brain explodes with enough firepower to bring his whole hideout collapsing down around you. So you have to fly back out the way you came, but what's this? There's a mysterious transmission coming in.
Don't ever give up, my son.
Father?
It's your father, James. Was he trapped inside Andros' head the whole time? Who knows? But it's time for you to yeet yourself out of the planet, and he's there to guide you out. Again, this part is pretty simple, unless you don't have any wings, which if Andros can help it, you won't. And you'll be on a sliver of HP, screeching, burning, and swerving more than your average redneck in his F-150 after his favorite sports team won the big bowl game. Then you make it out, and here's where I always got super confused as a kid. If you look really close at the cutscene when you two fly out of Venom, you might see James's ship disappear, dissolve away. But because of the poor graphics of the time, it really looks like his father just left the rendered distance of the game. And as a kid, I never really understood what happened to James, and now I guess as an adult, I'm just supposed to believe that Fox, a trained pilot, just had a full-on hallucination lead him safely out of a burning planet, which makes you wonder, was any of it real? Was there ever a galaxy in danger led by a giant evil monkey? Are his team of a bunny, falcon, and frog even real? I mean, really, physically, how would a falcon even fly a starship? Or a frog? A bunny, maybe? Now I'm starting to doubt the whole game. Maybe it was all just in Fox's head. Maybe he was really just flying around the system, blowing up innocent creatures and cities, and his supposed team was actually the space police following him, trying to stop him from continuing his genocide. Maybe after the death of his father, Fox just snapped and lost his shit. Maybe he's not even a pilot. Maybe...